Good evening, my lovelies. It is I, Darkest Dubski, and it seems that ruin has come to our Steam page. Seems that Darkest Dungeon has a little faux pas recently. The recent reviews have not been looking so good, and I was actually kind of curious as to why this happened. So here's what we're going to do. These are the most helpful reviews in the past 30 days. We're going to get to the bottom of what happened with Darkest Dungeon. Now, I'm not a fan of Darkest Dungeon. I did my time. I uninstalled. I didn't think it was that enjoyable of a game. Certain people enjoy it, and you're allowed to like the games if you like them. That's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that you wasted your money. Fuck you. No, I'm not trying to say that. But what I am trying to say is that some people have opinions that aren't my own, necessarily, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. This is journalism. This is investigative journalism. I'm going to do so much journalistic integrity that Buzzfeed doesn't have. Now let's get right into it. The user J does not recommend this game. He has 117 hours on record. That is quite a lot of time to be playing Darkest Dungeon. But here is what they say. I enjoyed this game greatly, but I cannot in good conscience give Darkest Dungeon a positive review. Red Hook Studios' abysmal conduct regarding the Korean localization cannot be excused. I honestly have no idea what could have possibly gone through their minds when they orchestrated this train wreck. For those who don't know, this is what happened. 1. A Korean amateur team by the name Team Waldo, widely considered to be the most prolific and competent translation team in the community, made a patch for the Darkest Dungeon shortly after its release. The Darkest Dungeon. We need to specify this. Thanks to the high-quality fan-made Korean language patch, the game was quite popular in Korea to players and streamers alike. 2. Red Hook, after presumably learning that the game was popular in Korea, promised an official I think I speak Korean, because English is definitely not my first language. They promised an official localization of the game. Team Waldo offered to supply their version of the translation out of goodwill, but Red Hook, for some reason, refused. Red Hook claims that this was for ownership ambiguity reasons. I guess a lot of business red tape. But according to emails revealed by Team Waldo, there was no such ambiguity. The fan translation was owned by 3 individuals, all of whom were willing to supply their version to Red Hook free of charge. 3. Red Hook hired a professional translation company to handle the localization. This took more than a year. What's more, during that time period, Red Hook thoroughly, strange spaces in between words. I'm not redoing this. I promise you I'm not redoing this take. They thoroughly neglected to take feedback from Korean playtesters regarding the quality of the translation, even going as far as to openly snub persistent individuals. I don't see any evidence for that, but okay. 4. The translation in question was recently released with memorable quality. It turns out the translation had been outsourced 4 times to companies of questionable merit. Ruin has come to our family was translated to Our family has become archaeological ruins. Warrens to Rabbit Farm. Hard Noggin to Resilient Beer Glass. Just to be clear, these 3 examples aren't quirky exceptions. The entire translation is like this. I have never seen such incompetence since Pokemon Vietnamese Crystal. I feel like catching some pixies or whatever the fairies. Did they call them fairies? I don't know. Red Hook, your attitude towards this localization project has been inexcusable. Darkest Dungeon was once one of my favorite games. This game is one of the only games I've beaten multiple times. Hell, I used to make memes about this game to post to Korean gaming communities. What a damn shame. Consider this a lost DLC sale and the inception of an active vocal boycott in Korea for any of your future projects. I don't even understand why you did this, but I hope it was worth it for you. Just kidding, go to hell. Greedy, incompetent, abrasive developers like you don't deserve to be successful as you are now. Well, that's a little intense. I don't know if they should be, like, boycotted. Like, I don't know, maybe their next game won't be as so, like, RNG-based or cripplingly difficult. Edit, remove profanity. That's good. Addendum. I'm now considerably less upset and emotional than I was when I first wrote this review, but I'm preserving the original tone for the sake of posterity. And 377 people found this review helpful. Okay, so, yeah, they realized that it was a little emotionally charged. That's okay. I mean, I'm not going to dock points from this guy. At least he was, self-aware. It looks like there's 63 comments. So a lot of people had plenty to say about this particular review. Whatever, we're not going to dive that deep. So yeah, it seems like Red Hook had their own little faux pas with this translation issue. Tisk tisk. Let's move on to the next one. Calmore, with 10 hours on record, says, Auteur's nose. The original review was written with the embodiment of salt that I felt at this game. In light of wanting full disclosure, I kept the old, pretty bad review at the end, but you shouldn't use it as a reliable review of this game. I hope that the first part just below this is, however. Seems like there's a lot of salt surrounding this game. I wonder why. Below is the revised review. Alright, so I'll be more blunt and less roundabout about this game. Darkest Dungeon is hard, and most of its difficulty does stem from its RNG and immense disparity between the player and the titular Darkest Dungeon, the horrors of which infest the estate of an ancestor of yours. That is very true. It's very RNG based, and yeah, it's pretty tough. Clearing this game is a test of endurance. Death does come suddenly and without mercy. That is true. Every facet of the game is meant to stress you and your characters out. That is also true. Death results in a loss of a character in their entirety. That is true. Victory is seemingly insurmountable. In most cases, that is also true. Saying all of these things are bad is unfair, however. I might disagree with him on that part, but there are people who absolutely love this, and while I cannot agree, I do understand. Comparing the game to Dark Souls in gameplay is dubious at best, I'll admit, but in the same way the games make you feel and challenge you is similar. Okay, both give you brutal trials and insurmountable odds for you to overcome. You driven forwards by the want and need to prove that you can win, and doing so is very rewarding. Not sure about this last part, but we will continue. But when it comes down to it, there are very different games for very obvious reasons. I greatly enjoyed Dark Souls, but do not greatly enjoy Darkest Dungeon. I think it's because you can actually, like, do stuff in Dark Souls instead of, being at the mercy of RNG. Maybe that's why. The same can be said for Hotline Miami or Super Meat Boy, but I think the reason I enjoy those and not Darkest Dungeon is the same as why I like the Dank Souls. But in the essence of time, we'll just focus on the Dank Souls. Getting a little fast food here. It comes down to player agency. I know, a game isn't a game without player agency, and Darkest Dungeon is absolutely a game. You guys heard it first. It is a game. Okay? What I mean is that there is a difference in player agency between these games. In the Dank Souls, every mistake is completely yours. You missed that attack, you dodged at the wrong time, you rolled off that cliff for the 3rd time in a row, and that is true. I think I'm following their point on this agency thing. Darkest Dungeon has a lot of player agency in the form of tactics and logistics. You decide who goes into what dungeon, you decide what each of those characters do, you decide what you take, and you decide the direction. Darkest Dungeon has just as much agency as any of the games I previously mentioned, but it's in a different way. Okay, I'm sort of following. You see, in Darkest Dungeon, you are the caretaker of an estate and the commander of adventurers. You tell them what to do, determine how the estate progresses, you control all the factors, except for some of the ones that count the most. When your Crusader misses 10 attacks in a row that he should have good hit chance on, it's not your fault. True. When an enemy crits on your only healer in the first fight, nearly kills them, only for another enemy to finish it off, it isn't your fault. True. When a character gains a crippling trait, it isn't your fault, unless you were not avoiding stress whenever you could. That is also true. It's not to say this is all that happens in the game, though. It is a big part of it. Come on. Your Crusader can and very may well hit 10 times in a row, getting 2 or 3 crits as he does so. You may sweep through a dungeon with only minor scratches and bruises, even when you shouldn't have. Your heroes gain amazing traits and boons instead of developing those terrible quirks. But even with this happens, it isn't on you. Yeah, so like I said, very RNG based, and I'm not a big fan of that. It's up to the game's RNG. RNG determines if you hit or miss that 80% hit chance. RNG determines if your character gains a positive or negative development at high stress. RNG determines if the enemy will crit on you or you on them. RNGesus, folks. But that isn't a criticism of Darkest Dungeon entirely. Many, many games use RNG all the time. The very nature of RNG stems from the dice rolls of pen and paper RPG systems, and I absolutely adore my Pathfinder and D20 Modern. At least, it shouldn't be. Huh, interesting sentence structure. I'm not an English teacher, I promise you. But then the RNG-based combat makes me angry in the same way it does in XCOM or Xenonauts. Getting hit too much and too hard by attacks I shouldn't be, and missing attacks consistently that I should be landing grinds my bones. I can only take so much before I just stop playing. That is a huge part of why I dislike Darkest Dungeon. There's a ton of grind and RNG in Darkest Dungeon, but there is also a great atmosphere and world masterfully crafted here with amazing voice acting by the ghost of your dead ancestor who had tried to combat the horrors you now face. There is a lot of good in this game, but for me, the bad is enough to turn me off. And he's right. You know, I do like the atmosphere. The style is very, you know, vivid. It differentiates itself from other games very quickly with its style and its atmosphere and all that good stuff. But don't let that fool you. That is my belief, is what I feel is wrong about the game, or more specifically, the type of game Darkest Dungeon embodies, which are games where the RNG is the basis which the rest of the game is built upon. So it is like the core mechanic. Yeah, there's not much to change there because it completely uproots the game. Kinda sucks. I feel that it relies too heavily on RNG, which it does, and not enough on player skill and strategy. Very true. These things exist, most definitely, and admittedly, I was not following the optimal strategies or doing the best character builds and party makeups because, unfortunately, you have to, you know, consult the internet. You gotta go to the Reddit and be like, hey, what am I doing wrong? It's not like you can really figure it out for yourself in the game. And then people, you know, they're just like, hey, get good. Yeah, okay. So, anywho, moving on. But if you do not mind that at all, and you relish in overcoming something when it tries to screw you over at every turn, I'm not one of those players, and the thought of questionable hit percentages in a very RNG-heavy grinding game sounds like fun to you, then please play this game. No doubt you will love it. But I use this word a lot. As for me, this game isn't fun. Perhaps I let it go too early. I think you got the gist of it pretty quick there, Cheech. I didn't learn it well enough, and I did it wrong, but I don't want to continue playing it to find out. It is based on my personal bias and experience and enjoyment that I do not recommend this title. I urge you to seek a second opinion and acknowledge that this is a personal view of mine. Yeah, so this is the poor review. Probably a lot of salt. I think we got the gist of this guy's review. Let's see. Moving on. This is the third, I believe. 1, 2, and 3. All right. We're just going to do 5 reviews. The new patch makes most of the things that made the game enjoyable a lot worse and tedious. The RNG element is worse than before, having to rely on crits more than ever. That's not good. RNG was already a problem. Seems that by this one person's admission, Danny, with 229 hours on record, I think I would trust the opinion of this person quite a bit. But anyway, review 4 by Poetry of the Dreams, 27 hours. I play games to relieve stress. Darkest Dungeon stresses me, but I want to relieve stress, but Darkest Dungeon stresses me. That, ladies and gentlemen, is my dilemma. Granted, Red Hook Studios shows a conspicuous message, i.e. a disclaimer, whenever you start the game that Darkest Dungeon is all about decisions and making the best of every situation. I think games should do that a little bit more. Just be like, hey, this could be, you know, this has its really big quirk that could turn people off. So yeah, here's us making note of that. I mean, at least Red Hook did that. But anywho, let's see. And I respect that. I respect the RNG. I don't. I respect the difficulty. But I'm not having fun. On the contrary, Darkest Dungeon frustrates me. Totally understandable. If you don't delve into the game mechanics and manipulate the numbers in your favor, the mechanics will frustrate you. That is exactly how Darkest Dungeon is. You've got this volatile ball of RNG, and you have to appease RNGesus by putting the numbers in your favor as best as you can. And, sometimes the best just isn't enough, and you get fucked. It happens, and it's not something I really enjoy about the game. But continuing on. Think permadeath, over-reliance on RNG, and the like. Furthermore, Darkest Dungeon is extremely grindly. Extremely grindly. True. You'll do the same things over and over again. True. That by itself is not necessarily bad. Debatable. Other games have some form of loop that keeps the player engaged, but the cycle in Darkest Dungeon, manage base, manage team, manage inventory, crawl dungeon, is mind-numbingly tedious, and it wouldn't matter because the RNG will screw you over anyway. So yes, I agree that this is very extremely grindy. You're going to be doing the same things over and over and over again just to make, one baby step forward to progress through the game. I'm not about that. I kind of like, not having to backtrack and grind. But that's just my opinion. I can see myself getting through all that because at its core, Darkest Dungeon is a good game. The visuals are a treat. Yeah, that's true. The oppressive atmosphere, palpable. The amount of love, passion, and creativity poured into this game really shows, which is true. I'll give them that. But if I need an exorbitant amount of luck in the process, I must pass. That is the dirge. That is the rub. Rubbing the dirge. I don't know what the fucking ye old English phrase is, but that's basically it. If you're on the fence in buying this game, ask yourself, am I a masochist? I tend to like to use the term masochist when it comes to like really super hard games. Because don't you feel that there's some people that enjoy just getting fucked in the face, that kind of thing. I'm not going to use that term liberally, but it makes sense. Just think about it. Think about it if the game is the one that handles the whip and you say, yes, please, mommy, please give me more, that kind of thing. Just keep an eye out on that. If you are, Darkest Dungeon may be for you. If not, stay away. It's one thing to learn from your mistakes. It's another when learning from them effectively wipes out hours of progress. Life is already frustrating with its permadeath and RNG. I don't see why I should deal with the same outside of it. To conclude, Darkest Dungeon is admittedly a well-made game. Red Hook did a tremendous job achieving their vision. Damn shame it's just not fun. I'm with you there, sister. Now for the final review. This latest patch is really ... sigh. I can't adapt to the art plus the nerfs. Did something get nerfed? Whatever, I don't even consider this a review. Fuck, 40 hours, 4 people thought it was helpful, whatever. Ooh, hello, a Korean person. Let's hear from across the pond, as they say. Lots of Korean. I don't know what that translates to. Korea translation is totally diseaster. So it's a disaster plus a disease. It's a plague, basically. For example, ruin has come to our family. Korean, that ruin become our family. Okay. I can see how that's a little bit like English. This example is just the tip of the iceberg. Lots of translated sentences are wrong in the game. What a singular translation. Wherefore a translator? I don't know what that means. A translator and Red Hook make really disappoint Korean fans. So yeah, they really disappointed all the Korean fans that have, in one example, put almost 180 hours into the game. The only word to bad translator in Red Hook is only don't tell me you're innocent because it insults my intelligence. It makes me very angry. All right, so it seems like the Korean players are not very happy with what Darkest Dungeon has done. So yeah, that was about 5-6 reviews within a certain time frame, but for the most part, they're sorted by Steam, by what they think is the most helpful. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. Did you enjoy Darkest Dungeon? Did you not enjoy Darkest Dungeon? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. And this is the DubskiDude signing